to this Sunday edition of The Sweat. I'm Steve Buchanan. That's Julian Eblo giving you a wave. That's Josh Applebaum giving you a smile. We are here for the next 2 hours to get into everything football, everything sports for your benefit. What's coming up here on the show? We're going to do a little of what's my motivation, not me personally, but we're going to be breaking down the teams with something to play for here today. Important incentives, what you need to know for player props, and then title on the line. Michigan and Washington best bets. These two handsome gentlemen will get into a little bit of that for you guys later on in the show. But before we begin, two big games took place yesterday. Josh and Julian here, starting off with that Steelers and Ravens game. Steelers picked up that 17-10 win. Pretty messy game overall. The under hit easily in that game. We were talking about that with the bad weather that was going through there, but the Steelers and Mason Rudolph were able to pull it off. And then an excellent game there in the nightcap there between the Texans and the Colts. Houston punched their ticket to the playoffs with a 23-19 win over Indy. CJ Stroud, who is no doubt your offensive player, rookie offensive player of the year, wrapped up his impressive rookie campaign, 264 yards, 2 touchdowns. The Texans now will either end up as a wild card team or host a wild card game as the AFC South champs, which is amazing to think about if the Jaguars lose today. We're going to talk a lot about that today. The Jaguars, who were basically shoo-ins to win that division, are right now on the outside looking in. It's absolutely crazy to really how that season has played out with them there. But let's start off there, guys, with that Texans and Colts recap. Texans really kind of set the tone there. First play of the game for the Texans, that 75-yard touchdown to Nico Collins on that blown coverage there. And then Tyler Goodson dropped that 4th and 1 to really just seal the fate for the Colts there. Really, for the Texans, after not performing well as a favorite against the spread, they have now covered in 2 straight games. Josh, any thoughts on the game yesterday or the Texans moving forward?
Yeah, a couple thoughts, Steve. So number one, I'm kicking myself for not maybe believing more of that dog to fave line move in favor of the Houston Texans.
And now, to be fair, that got down to almost a pick 'em again during the day. We almost saw that go back to the Colts.
Exactly, and I think that's why on the one hand, I'm like, okay, I got a +1.5 there with the Colts. It got up to 2. I think even got to 2.5 at one shot. Came back down. I'm like, okay, maybe it'll end up being a decent value play. But I think the thing that really tripped me up is that dog to fave line move. That's something that I love to see. And I kept seeing the bet splits there, and it was 71% bets, 80% money on Houston with that line move. And I said, hey, I like the line move, but I don't want to be with the public. So as a system-driven bettor, Steve, those are the tough positions for me where I want to respect the line move, but I also don't want to be with the public. So that's kind of a difficult spot. I would just say, in general, the play call. At the end of the game there, Shane Steichen, I have a lot of respect for him, but I like the play call, a little dump-off pass to the left, but why are you going to Goodson, a guy that has 6 catches all year,
truly.
Didn't make any plays throughout the game? To me, that was like getting too stuffed into your playbook and not thinking, hey, I got Taylor who's running wild all day.
Yep.
You got multiple times to get a couple yards. I would have just run it through for Taylor, but that's me being a begrudging after losing that bet on the Colts.
Julian, what did you make of that line move going out through the day? Because we almost got back to where this opened up, where Colts were the favorites, ended up being the underdogs, and then it almost got back there again as the day went on.
Yeah, I mean, it closed up, with 29% of the bets for 32% of the handle on Indy spread. And really, most of the people see this, they essentially call it a pick 'em game. You see a small plus price tag on the money line, you bet Colts money line. 40% wound up on the Colts. So it wasn't, as big of a gap as it was throughout the week of people just piling on Houston. That Indy money came back. And, it was a coin flip game. It came down to a 4th and 1. Execution wasn't there. It was a bad throw by Minshew. Receiver could have made a play on the ball. Like we said, Taylor's going nuts.
Yeah.
You take him. I just don't like whether you want to give him the ball or not. I don't like taking him off the field for that play.
Right.
What they didn't do, they kept running Taylor. There were so many plays that he was right at the line. Some of them he got the first down. Some of it was 3rd and 4th or short. But what they never did is run any play action with Taylor to open anything up. It was never that. It was just we're either handing it to him or we're going to call a pass play. And to take him off the field with your season on the line in a game where he had, almost 200 yards, that doesn't make sense to me. And Nico Collins, by the way, on the Houston side, that's a guy to look out for. The grab he made where it looked like Stroud was throwing it away, that was your no-sweat bet, right, Steve? Nico Collins receiving yards? Was it him?
Over 4.5 receptions, which I believe...
4.5 receptions.
I believe 5.5, but I believe he had 5 at the half, so it was just... that was
and
up.
I mean, yes, at least somebody won a no-sweat bet. Josh and I got pounded on the college hoops hardwood.
That's why I'm the host.
Yeah. So Nico Collins, you mentioned thoughts on Houston moving forward. He's a guy that, with Stroud there, he's looking like a legit wide receiver one for an NFL team. He's not just, some guy that had a random game and stepped up big.
And imagine next year, Tank Dell, they get him back, they'll be even better.
Yeah, without a doubt. Real quickly, Josh, before we move to the next game there, what are your thoughts just overall in the Texans in the playoffs here? Like, are they a legit contender? Are they going to be just kind of a flash in the pan here? Because obviously with the rookie quarterback, there's not a lot of inexperience there, but that team at least played like an experienced team, what we saw yesterday.
Yeah, and I don't really think I've sweat a whole game with C.J. Stroud. And I've really learned, obviously, watching him in that game, that he's the real deal. I think if you're a Carolina Panthers fan, you are so upset that you didn't take him and you traded all these picks to get Young. I'm not going to, give up on Young yet. He could be a great quarterback long term, but really, would be difficult if you're a Panthers fan watching that game. I look at it, Steve, in terms of, do I expect them to go far, make it to the AFC Championship game? No, I don't think so. But what I do think is, if they're a dog in their first wild card game, I don't know who they're going to play, but maybe they're getting, 3 points, 6 points. I don't know what the spread will be, but I could see backing them as a dog. Again, this is a team that, to me, you're really high on the future with, and the present looks pretty good too, but I think there's still some flaws. You got to give them a ton of credit for getting this far. Nick Caserio, who left the Patriots and really crafted this roster, did a fantastic job.
All right, Steelers and Ravens, that was the first game that we had yesterday. Steelers get the 17-10 win. Obviously, it feels like a close game, but weather, which obviously I'm very down on usually, that was a big factor in that game there, and that obviously kept this game tight. I think it was back-to-back possessions by the Steelers where they fumbled away the ball in the first half of that game there, but sloppy game overall. Decent, numbers for Mason Rudolph considering the elements that they had there. Huntley went under his passing yards, which you did talk about there yesterday. So Steelers did their part now. Now it's kind of a waiting game with what happens there with the playoffs and for them to get in. That really kind of ties into what we need today. Pittsburgh is in basically with a Jacksonville loss or a Buffalo Bills loss. They need one of those teams to lose for them to get in here. So, Julian, I'll start with you here. Do you think the Steelers are going to make it, and did they really show you anything, or can you even take anything away from that game? They obviously did lose T.J. Watt in that game, which is going to be big.
Yeah, odds-wise, it would suggest that one of those two teams is going to lose. Now, both are favored, but, you put them together, it would suggest that one would lose. Now, I like Buffalo a lot in the Sunday night game, so is it going to be Jacksonville going up against a Tennessee team that has nothing to play for? Mike Vrabel's job is in question. It's an interesting spot, but Jacksonville's kind of spiraled out of control recently. So are they going to make it? Odds suggest that they would. It's going to be dicey, obviously. And in terms of that game yesterday, I didn't necessarily learn anything about either team. It's not all that surprising of a result. It was a low-scoring grinder. The road favorite that had the motivation and all the starters playing wound up winning and covering the game. So didn't learn all that much in that game, but Pittsburgh on the road without Watt, if they do happen to get in, depends who they play, depends what the number is, but I'm already looking at that as a potential fade spot.
Josh here, to make the playoffs. Yes, for Pittsburgh is at -175. To miss the playoffs, +140.
Yeah, so based on those odds, this is really going to be, what did you say it was to miss? What was the number?
To not make it is +140.
Okay, so they're expecting them to make it, based on the minus number. So yeah, I think you're going to get in here. I'm with Julian, though. To me, the Steelers, you give a ton of credit to Mike Tomlin, another year where he avoided a losing season. It's incredible just over the long term how he's gotten his teams to play, no matter what the players are. But I'll be looking toward fading this team, especially with that T.J. Watt injury. Huge. He's your game changer here. Steve, if he's out in the next game, that's a big detriment. And also Mason Rudolph, give him a lot of credit. I thought his post-game interview was really interesting. He just seemed very humble. He never really thought that he was going to get another opportunity like this, and he's played great. So you're playing with house money. You make it to the playoffs. But I think this is a team that, depending on the line and their matchup, I could see fading them. I could see them being exposed. Not really high on the Steelers. But I would say, Steve, we have a few weather games today that we'll talk about later today, including in our region.
A real factor today.
So it's a real factor. I would argue it's always a real factor. That's just me.
Relax.
But, Steve, now since 2021, windy unders 10 miles per hour or more, 64%. It's been a great year, and I think yesterday was a test case of why you really want to pay attention to the weather and how it can affect and benefit the under.
Bump your system up to 15 miles an hour, and maybe I'll consider it here. Right. Okay, NFC playoff picture. This is who's in. This is on the outside looking in. Packers are technically in right now. They need to win today, and they're officially in. Seahawks need a win, and the Packers to lose or tie. Saints need a lot of things to happen. Vikings need a lot of things to happen. Falcons need a lot of things to happen. When this day is over, we wake up Monday morning. Julian, who's in?
Oh, God. I mean, I think Tampa, I know that the line's a little inflated, but I think Tampa does beat Carolina. Carolina hasn't taken a snap with the lead in the fourth quarter. They have 2 wins. Both of them were walk-offs. They've never led a game in the fourth quarter other than triple zeros in the 2 that they won.
Yeah.
I think Tampa ultimately gets it done, which is unfortunate for me as a Saints backer in the division. And I know the Bears are taking money, but I do think Green Bay is going to hold on. I know Seattle has a chance to beat Arizona, but Arizona's now a short dog as well and threatening to go over their win total. I think Green Bay hangs on. But those 2 teams that I mentioned, also teams I'm probably going to look to fade early in the postseason if they do get in.
Josh, quickly, who do you think gets in here, or does Green Bay hold on?
I think they hold on. We have seen a move toward Green Bay. They're -1.5 up to -3. There's a little Bears buyback +3, and maybe coming back down a little bit. But they're right now Green Bay -190 to make the postseason. I like that bet. Steve, just one comment before we get out of here. It's been a super chalky year in the NFL. You had both favorites cover yesterday. Favorites on the year in the NFL are 131 and 118 against the spread, almost 53%. Now, that doesn't seem very crazy, but you're beating the juice. The last 5 years, average, dogs are around 54% ATS. So it has been a really, really weird, chalky year. A lot of chalk bettors have loved it this year because of that.
Just watch that inactive list for the Packers. They have a lot of injuries of their receivers coming into today. We're going to take a quick break here. The NFC South is still very much up for grabs, and the scenarios get pretty confusing. We're going to try to break it down. We'll try when we come back. We're in the sweat. We'll be right back.
DraftKings Network's Sunday pregame power-up.
And just like you heard here, we are part of the Sunday pregame power-up on DraftKings Network and VSiN. We have you guys up till 10 a.m. Eastern. Following us will be the Lombardi line from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern, and then Brent Musburger will take you all the way up to kickoff 12 p.m. Eastern to 1 p.m. Eastern, and that is your 5 hours, 3 shows here on DraftKings Network and VSiN. Steve Buchanan, Julian Edlow, Josh Applebaum here for another segment here. Guys, we're going to get into the NFC South, which is really a division that is up for grabs right now. We have 3 of the 4 teams that are still very much in the mix for this division title. The Bucs get the Panthers on the road, while the Saints and the Falcons play each other in New Orleans. Here is how this thing is going to break down here. You see all the scenarios that could potentially happen here. Lots of confusion here. The Bucs are currently in first place, but if they lose to the Panthers in Week 18, the winner of Sunday's Falcons-Saints matchup would take the division crown. If the Bucs lose that opens the door for several other scenarios. Falcons would be a win with over the Saints. New Orleans could still make it into the playoff picture with a win and some help from both Seattle and Green Bay. Take a breather. Digest everything I just said. Go get your Red Bull. Go get your coffee. A lot of stuff can happen here. So let's start off with a couple of the games that are happening here within that division. Let's start here with the spread for the Saints and Falcons that we have in this game here this afternoon. We got the Saints here 3-8-1 ATS as a favorite, 2-4 ATS as a home favorite. Falcons 2-3 ATS as an underdog. This spread has been kind of bouncing around between 3 and 3.5 all throughout the week. What are your feelings on this one here, Josh?
Yeah, so believe it or not, I think Atlanta does have some value here just in terms of the line movement and really the contrarian spot. If you look at the current percentages, Steve, everyone's betting New Orleans. Just no belief here whatsoever in Atlanta for good reason. They're really not a good road team at all. They're pretty good at home, not good on the road. On the road, they're just 2-6 straight up. At this point here, we're looking at covering the number, but it just goes to show you that they don't travel very well. But you're right, Steve. 3.5s got down to 3. I saw some books that even as high as like a 5, a 4.5, a 4. There were some openers that were even higher and immediately got bet back down. So that tells me early wise guys hit the road team here, Atlanta Falcons, with the points. Now, they're only getting 28% bets, nearly 50% of the money. You do have that divisional dog angle. And if you remember, back earlier in the year, they actually beat the Saints 24-15 at home. So maybe they match up well against them. And they do have one system match. They got blown out last week against the Bears, 37-17. Dogs off a blowout loss of 20 points or more. They're 60% against the spread since 2018. So I think the eye test, or just kind of the feel, is, hey, New Orleans is going to win this game. But I think you got to just at least respect the fact that this line is moving toward Atlanta, even though no one wants to bet the Falcons.
So even worse for the Saints, Julian. Alvin Kamara is looking like a true game-time decision. Didn't really practice throughout the week. They're going to try to see how he feels during pregame, but there's a very good chance that he might not be in this game, and he's arguably been their best offensive weapon sans Chris Olave.
Yeah, and they need that weapon out there because this team really struggles to move the ball. The Falcons aren't good. The Falcons stink. The betting market suggests the Falcons are the side here. What we're forgetting, as a New Orleans division better preseason, I've been following them pretty closely. The Saints stink. They're not good. They're much better with, I would rather have Winston out there as a risk taker, but at least pushing the ball downfield, than Carr checking it down 13 times to Kamara, who's not even going to potentially be out there, and now you're really in trouble. So I don't have any belief in the Saints either, especially in a spot where the pressure is on them, the expectations are on them. So I don't like this game. I'm not going to bet this game. Market suggests Atlanta. If I'm getting points, and again, you mentioned, Josh, how Atlanta doesn't travel well. I faded them last week in the snow, outdoors, Chicago, terrible spot. At least you're in a divisional, in a dome. It's a team you know well. Like, this is a spot that Atlanta can show up on the road. So lean to Atlanta just because I would take the points in this spot. But this is a game between two bad teams where I don't believe in either of them, going out there and taking advantage of this moment.
So 2 bad teams and then 2 teams that are not strong at hitting the over either, Julian. We got some of the worst teams in this scenario. Saints are 5-11 to the over, tied for the worst in the lead. Falcons are right there too, 6-10 to the over so far this season. And then, like you said too, if they don't have Kamara, then they're not doing these checkdowns, so maybe they're prone to throw the ball more. But that's been difficult to do against a good Falcons secondary.
Yeah, I would lean under. Betting splits suggest over in this one. I would lean under just because of the divisional matchup late in the season, familiarity, and there's high stakes on this game. So maybe you tighten up a little bit. So lean under, but again, both leans on this game. There's nothing that I'm confident enough to actually wager on.
Josh, this hasn't stayed the same all week long. It's jumped up and down, maybe a half point here and there, but it's basically is where it was when it opened last week.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Steve. I would lean under just because, the style of play between these two teams, a little bit more conservative. Kamara could be down here. The quarterback play isn't great on either side. Unders this year, I was mentioning earlier how favorites have just been incredible. Unders on the year have been great too, 54% overall. Divisional unders. You know your opponent, you know how to match up. They're a little bit higher. They're closer to 56%. So I would lean under there a little bit. And just to comment on the 42.5 may not seem like a big deal. That hook could be really crucial here. DraftKings is offering right now 42.5. So if you like the under, lands 42, not as much of a key number with the spread, but that could come into play. If you like the under, make sure you get the hook.
All right, let's go to this other game now with Tampa Bay and the Panthers here. Big thing here for Baker Mayfield. Some props that he's looking to cash in on here. He's been obviously phenomenal in leading the Buccaneers to where they are here, but you're looking at where he is here with some of his props. Just real quickly here, what are you guys' thoughts on just Baker Mayfield overall and what he's been able to do for this Buccaneers team, especially because he's coming off what was a Tom Brady-led team a couple years ago?
Yeah, give him a ton of credit. This is a guy that, again, came into the league as a number one pick, had a year or two great years with Cleveland. Again, flames out, comes back, reclamation project, and he's done a really good job here. I think he's setting himself up for a big contract because he's played so well. The one thing I'm tripped up here, Steve, though, if you look at this game today, we say it every single week, are they ever going to cover numbers? But Carolina does have a line move. Today we did see Tampa Bay open as high as, I saw some books, I think it was like -6. You're down to 4. And we did see Tampa trip up last week. So this is a division game. Tampa needs to win, obviously, to get into the postseason. But you got to respect the market and the fact this line is moving to Carolina. Maybe we get a closer, tighter game. I'd be wary of that if you're going big on Tampa Bay laying the points.
Millie to Baker Mayfield if they make the playoffs. So obviously a win here would be good for a number of reasons here. But for a team that could end up taking the division, Julian, this is only the 5th time that Tampa Bay is favored. 2-3 ATS in that scenario.
Yeah, again, just like the other game, these are dicey teams. But I do know one thing: the Carolina Panthers. There's 3 dicey teams in this division, and and then there's a bunch of layers, and then there's the Carolina Panthers at the bottom of the bottom. So I do think Tampa's ultimately going to win this game. I know it's a very public angle, but that's why the number opened inflated. Josh mentioned there were 6s out there; it's down to 4. Okay, so people are buying back on the Panthers. It still might be inflated. A month ago, when these teams played, Tampa was laying 3.5, 4 at home. Now they're laying 4 on the road. You're paying a premium, but, eye test, like I mentioned on the first segment, Carolina hasn't had a lead in the fourth quarter this season.
Right.
They've won 2 games by taking a lead with 000s on the clock. I can't buy into that. Like, Tampa is the better team. They're the better defense. They're the better passing attack. They're the better rushing attack. They have advantages all over the field. This is a week where you can get a little weird. You can put them like with the Bengals in a money line parlay against Cleveland, sitting everybody and try and eliminate the points in this game and get a little cute. I think there's different ways around it, and considering that I have a Saints division ticket, whether you have a Saints, a Falcons, whatever, I probably will get a little bit cute and try and find a way to get invested in Tampa, but just on the money line. Can't lay those points.
Yeah, I mean, for their credit, though, the Carolina Panthers have covered in 3 of their last 4 games. I know beginning of the first half of the season, they were one of the worst ATS teams in the league. Let's just talk about this total real quickly here. Obviously, very low total here, only 37 points. It's one of the lowest totals here on the board. Carolina, one of those teams that has been one of the worst in the league to the over. 5-11, Tampa Bay 6-10. So again, not teams that have gone over much at all. However, Josh, Tampa Bay has gone over in 4 of their last 6 games.
I'm looking for an under here, Steve. I know it's a low total. It's like 37 down to 36.5. Hasn't moved too much. But this is one of those so low it's got to go over public situations. If you look at the bet splits, only around 42% bets. More than 60% of the money is going with the under. And here is a bit of a windy one. Not as much as the issues we saw, obviously, yesterday with the Ravens game. But it's going to be about 10 to 15 mile per hour winds. And, Steve, I'm going to make your head explode. If you layer on a windy under in a division game, it gets even better. It's 12-4 to the under this year, 75%. It's 73% since 2022. So what do you think about that one? The weather and the familiarity aspect.
What's the most amount of layers you put on some of these systems?
You ever seen the movie Inception? Dream within a dream? I can go like 8 layers deep, Steve. I need a totem to just keep me awake, though.
I would like to see an 8-layer system play.
Pretty good. All right, quickly on the total.
Yeah, lean under. Going to be a gross game outdoors. These offenses haven't been anything special this year, particularly Carolina. So yeah, I don't see many points here, which is exactly why we don't want to be laying points with a road favorite in the division. You just want to get Tampa to win the game outright if you're going to get any exposure there.
Real quickly here, either you can take this one. Does Tampa have a legitimate shot if they do win the division and then going into the playoffs?
No, can't wait to fade them.
If they're a dog, I'll take the points. But yeah, don't expect
home
too
dog.
far. Yeah.
Home dog because it's a division. They would have to be at home if they get there. So
what if it's Cowboys at, or what kind of situation would that be?
That would be the game that the Cowboys would blow it. Yeah. Right? Like, if it was the Cowboys.
Cowboys outdoors on the road laying like a touchdown, like.
I'm gonna have to take.
I guess I have to think about it for a minute, but
I think I might have to take Tampa there. Okay, we have another big game coming up here tonight. Tua and the Dolphins will look to capture their first AFC East crown since 2008. Standing in their way, though, are those damn Buffalo Bills team that ripped up 4 straight wins. We'll preview Sunday night's marquee matchup here
Mafia.
next. There you have it, AFC East standings. Big one here tonight, Miami and Buffalo. I'm sorry, New England Patriots fans are not going to make the playoffs this year. You're not going to see them. And this is going to be Bill Belichick's final game as a head coach of the Patriots, right?
I can't believe it took us a half hour to mention Bill Belichick. This could be it, Steve.
It is going to be.
And it could be a
snowstorm. And you know what the worst part is? Nobody's going to watch it. Well, no one's watching it.
Oh, I'm watching.
And literally like the worst conditions possible. Like you want to talk about weather games? Like that is the weather.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Down to 29
Is that going to be that maybe hour two to talk about that?
No sweat bets.
Well, don't give it away.
Pat's money line.
Say what I'm doing.
All right, let's talk about.
Josh did.
Let's talk about a game that actually matters here. Bills at Dolphins. A lot on the line in this game here that starts at 8:20 p.m. Eastern. Bills can clinch the AFC East with a win in this game. Bills can also clinch a playoff spot with a tie. Jaguars loss or tie, or Texans and Colts. Well, not Texans and Colts. That's already over. That did not end in a tie, but a Jaguars loss or tie. Thank you very much.
You want to bet you want to bet that game with me?
Yeah, spoiler alert, Texans are going to win that game. So obviously a ton on the line here. Guys, I want to mention here, though, how poor Tua has been specifically in the month of January. He's played 3 games in the month of January, averaging 225 passing yards, 2 touchdowns thrown, 4 interceptions in that game, has taken 6 sacks there, has not been good in the month of January. Does that play into today's game against the Bills? Josh, let me ask you, which Tua shows up here today?
So I'm going to bet against Tua. I really like the Bills Mafia in this one, Steve. We've seen the line go to Buffalo. They open, -2-ish. They got up at one point to -3. They've been hovering around 2.5 and 3, but all movement liability has been on Buffalo in this spot. They're getting 65% bets, nearly 80% of the money. And really, for me, Steve, it's not just the data on the line move. It's a couple other factors. One is health. We've seen Buffalo Bills really come on here recently. They're pretty much at full strength. Injury report is very, very short. You look at that Miami injury report, it is massive. They have tons of guys here who are banged up. We already know for sure that Chubb and Xavier Howard are out.
Yep.
Waddle and Mostert, they're questionable. I thought I saw a tweet, maybe they'll miss the game. I know there's a lot of issues here on that Miami side. Also, Tua, you give the stats here, but he's had a shoulder that's bothered him recently. He's going to play, but how effective will he be? Here's the system too, Steve. Road favorites just straight up. If you're favored on the road, these teams are 64 and 34, 65% this season. Bills are surging. They crushed Miami earlier this year, 48-20. Miami, I mentioned it yesterday. I actually had a Miami fan DM me and say, you're totally right. They're a paper tiger. They cannot beat good teams. They're 1-4 against teams above 500. I am bigly on Bills Mafia money line. Circle the wagons, -150.
What do you think about the running game on both sides here? If you look at James Cook, he's really kind of come on since Week 15 against the Dallas Cowboys. Had 25 carries, 179 yards, and a touchdown in that game. Last 3 games, he's averaging 20 carries and 99 rushing yards per game.
Yeah, he's been really good, but I'm gonna go the other way here and look at the passing game for Buffalo, because do you guys know how good Josh Allen has been against Miami? First of all, the Bills have won 10 of the last 11 matchups against the Miami Dolphins. Josh Allen, here's back in October when they played, obviously, in Buffalo. 320 yards and 4 passing touchdowns. Last season, 2 matchups, 304 yards, 4 passing touchdowns. The September matchup, 400 yards, 2 passing touchdowns. Josh Allen has played the Dolphins 11 times in his career. He has never thrown for fewer than 2 passing touchdowns. Josh Allen prop, over 1.5 passing touchdowns, -115. Over 245.5 passing yards, -115. Both of them pretty modest, standard juice. I think both of those are good plays on Josh Allen. If you want to same game parlay them, they're very correlated. You can go ahead and do that. And I'm with Josh. I laid 2.5 with Buffalo. I think it's a great spot for the Bills. More motivation than the Miami side, particularly. We'll see how the day shakes out. But if it's a win and in versus win the division or go on the road in the wild card game, we'll see. But I love Buffalo here. And assuming if Josh and I are right about Buffalo, we're talking look-aheads to postseason wild card. That would put Miami, who would then drop to 1-5 against winning teams, Josh, in Kansas City with a modest spread because everybody thinks the Chiefs stink. Kansas City at home in that one. I'll fade the Dolphins today. I'll fade them again next week if we're right.
No, I can't do that.
Yes, you can.
No, I can't do that.
Miami in Kansas City.
No.
And Bills have the second best odds to win the AFC, +380.
See, this is how you people get suckered into these things.
No.
Yes. Yes, you just...
This is how the Dolphins people get suckered into things.
No.
They think the Dolphins are good.
No. I will say, though, this is the first time this season that Miami has been an underdog at home. at plus 2.5. And I will say I have them at plus 3 for today. Okay, let's talk about
Sorry
this.
for your loss.
Nope. So let's talk about this total. This kind of peaked earlier in the week. It was at 50.5 earlier in this week. These teams combined when they face each other earlier in the season win for 68 points in week 4 in that 48-20 win for Buffalo. But Miami kind of reminds me of Dallas in this scenario. They're excellent at home, 34 points per game at home compared to just 26 on the road. But one of the biggest things that Miami's going to
that average would be like 17 if they didn't score 70 against the Broncos.
All right. Yes, obviously there's a little inflation there, but who isn't dealing with inflation these days, right? But let's talk about Miami obviously missing a key piece on defense with Chubb here. They're already without Phillips, now they're without Chubb. Chubb accounted for 13 sacks, 44 hurries on the year, so that could give Josh Allen more time to throw in this scenario. What do we think about the total now, Josh? And now this peaked at 50.5 earlier in the week, down 2 points now to 48.5.
I like the under, Steve. Good point. You mentioned how it's fallen as high as 50.5 down to 48.5.
Thank you.
Great bet split. Only 35% bets, 50% of the money is going under. And I'll look at this primetime under angle. You did see one win last night. Obviously, it's been a weird year with primetime unders where they started off like death taxes, PT unders. They were incredible. At one point, they were like 80%.
You gotta stop bringing this up.
Regressed. But here's my angle from last night, Steve. When these games mean a lot and they're kind of like playoff type games, like last night, the Texans Colts felt like a playoff game. You play a little differently. You're not as wide open. You're not as taking as many chances here. I think that benefits a lower scoring game. And you're mentioning a lot of the Dolphins guys defensively who are out, which you would think would benefit the over. They also are missing a lot of offensive guys who are going to help the under. So I like the under 48.5 here. I'd go under in this one.
What do you think about the total?
Josh and I are seeing this game the same way. No bet on the total for me, but definitely lean under. Josh mentioned the splits and everything, but yes, divisional game, a lot on the line late in the season. This one's going to be a little tighter than that early season game in Buffalo where the Bills just kept scoring and scoring. So I see this one, being more in the range. While I like Buffalo, I don't know, like a 24-20 type of game seems fair. Miami missing those weapons or having guys dinged up, I think is going to play a key role. It's going to allow Buffalo, not that it'll be easy, but to really hone in on Tyreek Hill and make things difficult.
Let's talk about some props in this game here. One that I like here is just continuing to fade Stephon Diggs at this point. Like, I don't know what the issue is on getting him the ball, but like he just hasn't been efficient at all. His line is set at 59.5 at this point. Like, this is somebody who earlier in the year was consistently seeing like in the high 70s and the low 80s for his yardage total. But now we have a scenario where he's likely being shadowed by Jalen Ramsey in this game. And since returning to the field, Ramsey is allowing just a 50% reception rate on 32 targets, 197 yards allowed, but only 48 yards after the catch at this point. He's gone under 59.5 receiving yards in 4 straight games now. I don't think that's going to change here, especially going up against Ramsey in coverage. What's the prop you like in this one, Julian?
Well, I showed my hand a little bit off the top with the Josh Allen passing props. I think those are the best props in my mind in this game, looking at him through the air. You mentioned Cook on the ground and how good he's been lately. I don't mind even looking at Josh Allen rushing props as well. So I'm just going to have all the Josh Allen. He's 35.5. He's had 35 or more rushing yards in 4 of his last 5 matchups against Miami. Averages 52 rushing yards in those 11 games against Miami in his career. And again, when does Josh Allen run? When the Bills have to have it. What do the Bills have to have? This game. So give me Josh Allen everything. I think he's going to have a very good game and be a big reason why the Bills win this game.
What do you think?
So I'm looking at a lot of these receivers. There's a lot of guys who are juiced up on the Buffalo Bills side. Like Dalton Kincaid over 32.5 is minus 120. Gabe Davis over 36.5 is minus 120. But you know who my favorite play today is?
Tell us.
A guy that you may not automatically think of, but it is Khalil Shakir. Over 24.5 receiving yards. The juice is minus 130. Tells me you got to pay a premium for a reason. I like targeting these guys who aren't the big name guys. You go down the list a little bit. Shakir's been really good for this team, kind of unheralded, I should say. 4 catches, 39 yards against the Patriots last week. He does really good against man defense. Also, he's 7-3 to the over his last 10 to that number. And with Miami cornerbacks banged up, Ramsey focusing on Diggs, I think this opens up a lot of opportunities for Shakir. So give me Khalil Shakir over 24.5 receiving yards.
Just about less than a minute left here. So just quickly want to ask you guys, for the AFC Conference, do you guys like the odds for the Bills to win here? It's at plus 380. That's the second best odds behind the Baltimore Ravens. Then you have Chiefs and Dolphins after that.
I think the odds are good because I think that they're going to win this game, and then that puts them in the 2 seed, and they could potentially make it all the way to an AFC title game in Baltimore, and then you got a good number and you can do whatever you want. So I think it's fair. I just don't love betting it on a team that could miss the playoffs still.
Yep.
So I'll pass on it, but I think that there's a good chance if you like Buffalo like Josh and I do, that you're getting ahead of it and you get yourself a pretty good number here.
Yeah, so plenty of eyes on this game here tonight, so we'll keep a close eye on that one. There's still a lot of stuff in the playoffs that need to be worked out. We'll have all of our answers by the time we wake up here tomorrow. Another answer we need. Cowboys and Eagles have both clinched their spot in the playoffs, but a division title is still up for grabs in Week 18. Which team wants it more? We'll tell you when we come back. Well, at least half of the division tried. Dallas and Philly kind of win the NFC East here today, both tied atop there at 11-5. We will get an answer here later today. Gents, welcome back to the Sweat, part of the pregame power-up. Steve Buchanan, Julian Edlow, Josh Applebaum. Josh, who does this division mean more to right now? Is it the Cowboys or the Eagles?
So I think it means more to the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, the Eagles, they have proven, even though they're on a big slide right now, that they can get to the big game. They're messed up, obviously, but if they get it right, they have the talent to make it work. Dallas Cowboys, I think they need that spot here to get a better matchup here in their first game. And to me, the Cowboys, they need to be at home as well. We've seen a huge difference home and road when it comes to Dallas. So I think it means more to Dallas. And again, they're sitting pretty right now. As long as they beat the Commanders, they're favored by 13 in that game. Then probably that's what's going to happen.
I'm with Josh. What do you think?
Yep, Eagles have had at least shown the ability to win on the road when they're at their best. Now, right now, I don't know if you like them at home or on the road. They're probably going to be a fade for a lot of people, depending on the matchup. But yeah, Dallas is 3-5 on the road and 8-0 at home. That decides it right there. I think it's pretty simple.
Eagles are on the road today against New York or Jersey, whatever you want to call it there, but they've got some brutal numbers, at least over the past 5 games here. They are 1-4 straight up over the last 5 games, 0-5 over that scenario. And we talked about this on the show last week, and this was true again. The spread doesn't exactly qualify yet, but the Eagles have not covered a spread higher than 5.5 this season. They are 0-6 against the spread when favored by at least 6 points. Now, the spread right now is -5 in favor of the road Eagles. Josh, do they cover, or do the Giants get one more cover here against the Eagles?
G-Men!
You know
Going with the Giants, baby. I love the Giants in this spot. G-Men have a good sharp line move. They covered last week, remember, against the Rams. Needed a Gunnar Olszewski return there to cover the number. But this is all about data, and I think there's might be something else at play here. Data-wise, G-Men opened as high as +6.5. You're down to 5. Some books even down to 4.5. Only 35% bets, 51% of the money. Also, divisional dog angle, and Tyrod Taylor. With the Giants, 3-0-1 against the spread. In his career, he's 32-21 ATS, 60%. And Brian Daboll is 17-9 against the spread, 65% as a dog in his career. So lines going to the G-Men, even though the public will not quit the Eagles. And we're hearing rumors, leaks. One of you guys just mentioned Devonta Smith might miss this game.
I believe he is out, yes.
Yeah, do they sit some guys? This is kind of a meaningless game because they would have to win and the Dallas Cowboys would have to lose, and that's probably not going to happen. So business decisions, I think if you're Philly, you sit some guys. I think you're playing this game. You got to go G-Men. You could tease it up 4.5 to 10.5. I grabbed +5.5 earlier this week with the Giants.
Yeah, offense could be really condensed if Smith ends up being out. A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert. DeAndre Swift also popped up on the injury report Friday with an illness.
Yeah, I mean, Philly's been awful recently to begin with. You got a home divisional dog here in a game that we'll see what it means to Philly. The other aspect here, you know who Dallas is playing, and you're going to go into the locker room at halftime. What if Dallas is up 21 at halftime? Does Philly just straight up make the decision, we're going to go with the backups in the second half? That's an aspect of this game.
Is that a legitimate reason to not bet this game?
I'm passing on this game.
Yeah.
I would bet the Giants if I was forced to pick a side. But this is one of the things that if you're going to be planted in front of the TV on week 18, tracking these games, hey, it's 24-7 Dallas at halftime, and you can still get a good +3.5 or better, call it, on the Giants at halftime. Maybe you want to go ahead and look at that. So it's case by case. You got to feel it out, but that scenario could present itself today.
Josh, his total has been sliding all throughout the week here. It was at as high as 46 earlier in the week. It's come down to 42. Philly has been one of the teams that if you've been betting the over, you are in the profit, as they've covered in 56% of their games with a 9-7 record to the over. And with Tyrod Taylor, last 2 games, Giants have also gone over.
Yeah, so I think just from the standpoint of the line dropping, definitely a lot of early money took that under, 46.5 down to 42. But you mentioned it, Steve. Tyrod actually is playing pretty decently here and putting up some numbers. They're scoring some points. If Philly makes these business decisions, obviously it's going to hurt them offensively. If Hurts maybe only plays a quarter or a half, or Devonta Smith might be out, as we're hearing, or DeAndre Swift. So it's tough for me, Steve. I still lean under. It's a pretty good bet split, only 38% bets and half the money. But you got to also think about, hey, do the Giants put up some points? Are you getting the worst of the number if you're playing the under? Not a ton of weather to worry about here, Steve. So
good.
You can cross that one off the list. I'd still lean under. I think if you could have a great teaser here, though. If you can take Giants 4.5 to 10.5, and then you can take that total 42 to 48 for under 48.5, that could be worth a look.
Totals?
Don't do it.
A little bit.
Don't
There's
do it.
sometimes.
There's value in teasing a total, like Army-Navy total. Or today, potentially a Patriots-Jets total.
Okay.
The lower that total gets, the more valuable those 6 points are. Put it that way.
But normal basis, do not be teasing totals.
Yep, that's what I'm saying.
Quickly, let's go through some props here. If Swift does end up playing, I do like his rushing yard prop here. The Giants have been one of the most generous teams to opposing running backs, allowing over 112 rushing yards per game, 16 rushing touchdowns, which is the third most in the league. But it doesn't matter when it comes to Swift because he'll get to the 1 yard line and then Jalen Hurts will just go in himself. Any props you like in this one, Julian?
Well,
it's okay to pass.
I'm going to pass because what I wanted was Eagles starters unders in that scenario that we just talked about that plays out. What's not on the board? Eagles starters. Sportsbooks are smart. Johnny Avello, Unreasonable Odds interview every week. He's obviously a very smart guy. I don't think that is going to be available, so pass for me.
Darren Waller, tight end. I like the over here, over 34.5 receiving yards, juiced up minus 135. Waller has really got a connection here with Tyrod Taylor. Taylor, I think, has only started, 3 games at this point?
Correct.
Darren Waller's, I think, best 3 games are with Tyrod Taylor, not Tommy Cutlets or, the other guy who got hurt. I think this is a good angle here to back Waller. He had 5 for 51 last week. He's really become a go-to guy for Tyrod. So give me Waller over 34.5.
All right, let's talk about this Dallas-Washington game here. Obviously, Dallas.
Have to?
Yeah, we do have to. But, it means something. Dallas is a massive favorite here, 13-point favorite. Dallas 3-1 against the spread as a double-digit favorite. They've covered those games by an average of almost 20 points. The only time that they did not cover is when they lost earlier in the season against the Cardinals in Week 3 as a 13-point favorite. Washington coming into this game has been a double-digit favorite, underdog, not double-digit favorite. They've been a double-digit underdog. This is the 4th time in the last 6 games. Josh, any thoughts here on the spread?
So I'm a guy who likes to at least respect the market. And the line is moving a little bit toward Washington. It was minus 13.5. Some looks down to 13, but I'm with you, Steve. You got to have some major stones to take the points here at Washington. Although I would say, Ron Rivera, is he going to get fired? Does he rally the troops?
That's the report this morning, yeah.
Is that the angle?
Parting ways.
Yeah, so do the players say, hey, we're going to play really hard for Ron Rivera. He's a good guy. He beat cancer. Let's send him off, and let's, because the Cowboys need to win it. But is that a motivating factor? Again, if you're betting, I would take Washington if I have to bet the game. But I don't have to bet the game. I'm going to be watching the Patriots game at this point.
Yeah, that's the beauty of the betting thing, Julian. You don't have to take a game you don't want to.
That is very beautiful. I can't bet this game. The number's pretty big. Dallas just has to win. These teams don't care about covering. This offense has been high-flying indoors in Dallas. Now you're going outdoors, gross DC. We know the East Coast weather, not very good today. So, there's a scenario where the Cowboys just don't score that many points and win this game by 7, 10, whatever, and win it by a comfortable margin where they don't even have to sweat clinching the division. So, I don't know, maybe under in the game. Dallas slows down that offense outdoors in the division, but it's a tough game. I'm going to pass.
Yeah, I think, and that's one thing I did want to bring up here is this total. It's one of the highest totals on the board at 47 points. On a normal basis, I think this game has a very strong case to go over, especially when you look at Washington over their 7-game losing streak that they're currently on. They're allowing an average of 33 points in those games, scoring only an average of 18 points. But the over has hit in 5 of the last 7 games because these teams are just absolutely pouring on the offense at this point. Is there enough motivation from Dallas's side that they need to have the foot on the gas the entire game? So could that lead to an underplay potentially with this being a 47 points? Josh.
Well, the market's definitely telling me wise guys like the under, but they liked it a little bit better when it was like 50, 49.5, 48. Now you're all the way down to 47. Some books might go to 46.5. Pretty good bet split to the under, 46% bets, 67% of the money. And I think that's an angle to consider, Steve. Like if Dallas is up big here, do they run the ball, chew up the clock, put in some backups, not risk any injuries, kind of keep it a little bit more, not as a blowout fashion, more of a just get out of there and get out with a win. That could be worth a look. I'd lean under if you're going to play this game. But remember, was it Thanksgiving? It was 45-10, or they blew them out? It was around there, right? Cowboys crushed the
Yes,
that was on Thanksgiving.
Yeah. So again, if that happens, then that number would go over.
Any thoughts on the total here?
I lean under, but kind of like the Eagles game, I would probably look to play this one in game. Maybe we get a first half over and Dallas is up 20-7 at halftime, and Philly's going to bench their starters, and you're going to look to grind clock in the second half. Maybe you look for a second half under in that scenario. Again, these are the things that present themselves in Week 18. You got to go into it knowing, have an idea of what you want to bet, but not forcing these bets. Take what the board gives you.
So obviously, I do actually like that play of the first half over. I think that's something to definitely consider here because
I didn't say to bet the first half over. I said maybe bet the second half under.
Okay, well, I'm starting to like the first half over, so that's the play coming out of my mouth.
Glad I talked to you into that.
Michael Penix Jr. was the talk of the football world after his performance in the Sugar Bowl, but how will he fare against a tough Michigan defense on the biggest stage? Josh and Julian give their best bets for the national championship game when we come back.
DraftKings Network's Sunday pregame power-up.
Welcome back to hour number 2 here on The Sweat. I'm Steve Buchanan. Still a lot to get to in hour number 2 here of The Sweat. We got some team win totals in the NFL we're going to keep an eye on as the day progresses. We're also going to get to something everybody has been waiting for us to talk about. That's some incentive talk. We're going to talk about some props to keep an eye on here too as well. But we're going to be kicking off this hour here with a preview of that national championship game between the Washington Huskies and the Michigan Wolverines. It is the 4th and final time 2 undefeated teams will meet for the national championship before the playoff format expands from 4 teams to 12. It's the battle of number 1 and number 2. Defense versus offense. Blue chip program versus Pac-12 underdog. Michigan hasn't won it since 1997. Washington's last title came in 1991. The Wolverines are currently 4.5-point favorites from Monday's game, but Jim Harbaugh knows that both of these teams deserve to be here, and with Michael Penix Jr. leading the opposing offense, he won't be taking these Huskies team lightly.
You know, I can see why they've won all their games. I mean, they're an outstanding, thorough, solid football team in every way. They got a quarterback that has the it factor. So do we. You know, we got a quarterback with the it factor, and a really, really good team in all phases. Just what it makes it so exciting to be playing in this game. I feel like, you know, if you're going to be the best, then you got to beat the best, and we look at Washington as a great football team.
So the stage is set for Monday at NRG Stadium in Houston. Julian and Josh are going to break it down.
All right, Josh, let's start with what I think, and most of us think, is the most intriguing matchup in this game, and that is Michael Penix and this high-flying Washington offense against an elite Big Ten Michigan defense. Now, we're not going to get the weather games outdoor Big Ten. It's indoors, obviously, here in Houston, which I think is favorable conditions towards Washington. How do you think this matchup specifically is going to go in this game?
Yeah, so I like the matchup in favor of taking the points here with Washington. I think there's a couple reasons. And if we go back to when this line first opened, I was prepared to look at a fade the trendy dog play to back Michigan and see that maybe, hey, the public would just be so heavy on Washington, haven't seen them, have all these upset victories to, hey, take the points, yet the line going toward Michigan. We did see a little bit of that. Some books in Vegas were -3.5 up to 4.5. We're sitting at this no man's land 4.5 right now where I mentioned yesterday, but the next move is critical. Do we go up to 5? Do we come back down to 4.5? Well, Julian, I was mentioning, I was talking to you before during the break, there is one book that's inching down to 4 right now. So are we starting to see this line get down to 4, at which point that's going to be a great sign if you like Washington and the points? That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take Washington here. From yesterday to today, Julian, it has evened out a little bit. I want these percentages to be close to 50-50. I don't want 60% of bets on Washington. That scares me because they're a little bit trendy. Yesterday, you were 41% Michigan. Now you're up to 43%. May not seem like a big deal, but we're trending toward more of a 50-50 breakdown, as well as this line maybe inching down to 4. So I'll take the points here, and I'll just tease the fact that at VSiN.com, we have a great article. We're compiling all the picks from all the guests and the hosts at VSiN and who they like. And I really want to hit on Stormy Bonantoni's breakdown. I thought she made a great point in terms of a lot of people are saying, hey, Michigan is this great team. Washington's got all these close wins, all these underdog upset wins. It's going to catch up to them. At some point, it's going to catch up to them. Stormy made a great point that, no, she likes them better in these spots because they're battle-tested and they've been through the situation with a chip on their shoulder. So I love Stormy's breakdown and made me even more excited to bet plus 4.5 with Washington.
This is the 3rd game in a row that they're in this situation. They battled in the Pac-12 to get their wins, got some ugly wins. The Oregon State one, I was all over the Beavers. It's raining sideways. They still pull it out. But these last few games have been similar. Neutral, indoors, in Vegas, big underdog to Oregon, win. Neutral, indoors, New Orleans, underdog to Texas, win. Same spot coming up against a Michigan team whose tests are an Ohio State team that turned it over twice and Michigan didn't turn it over at all. A Maryland team that scored 24 against Michigan. We're talking about this Washington offense and Penix Jr. against the Michigan defense. Michigan hasn't allowed more than 24 points this season. Washington's team total is 24.5. Something's going to give here. I'm playing the over on Washington's team total because of what they have done to really good teams in these spots. I believe in Penix Jr. and those receivers. The offensive line won the award for the best O-line in the country. Jalen Milroe was sacked 6 times in that Alabama game. A lot of offensive line issues. I don't think Washington's going to have those issues. So team total, just to isolate Washington's scoring, I like that one. Let's flip this, talk about the matchup of Michigan's offense and a really good running game. What can J.J. McCarthy do in this spot? And Washington's defense, how good are they? But they got some good pass rushers, some good corners. They have skilled players that can make plays on defense. What do you think about J.J. McCarthy in this Michigan offense, specifically the passing game against the Washington D?
So I give J.J. McCarthy a ton of credit. Guy's a winner. What's his record? Like 25-1, something like that. And I also gave him a lot of credit, just the fortitude to be in this spot, because there's a little thing they did about how he had depression in high school, and he does a lot of these kind of like breathing exercises and meditation. I give anyone a lot of credit who can go through that and then go on the biggest stage with all this pressure and play well and win. So I'm rooting for the kid here. I hope if he wins the game, it's by 4 or less, Julian. But I give him a lot of credit. Will he be a second-round pick, third-round pick? I could see maybe a team like the Patriots, if they don't get a quarterback early, maybe drafting him. And I think he does have an NFL future just because he's really smart. He's got a good arm. But in terms of the matchup, offense, defense, Julian, like a lot of stuff I'm reading about is how, Washington, this defense of Michigan is amazing, and they've never seen an offense this great or a defense this great. Flip it the other way. Has Michigan seen an offense like this with Washington? I don't think so. You have all these great wide receivers who are going to be NFL players. Penix Jr. is playing just absolutely incredible right now. Does he get in the top 10 conversation in the NFL draft?
If he wins this game, he is.
I think so too. And you look at a dog who can score. That's whether it's college basketball, NBA, any kind of spread sport. If you're a dog and you have really good offense, which Washington does, always a good angle there because it'll allow you to either keep pace, backdoor cover, stay in the game. I think Michigan, as great of a defense as they haven't seen anything like Washington before, so it makes me even more excited to sweat the Huskies here.
Yeah, we'll talk props later in the segment, but McCarthy-wise versus the Washington defense, I do kind of lean to the over in his passing prop because I think Washington is going to focus on stopping the run. I initially said Blake Corum rushing over would be one of my bets. It was 104.5 on DraftKings Sportsbook. He's only gone over that once this season. It was against Penn State when they didn't throw a pass in the second half. So I would lean under there, and I think maybe they attack the air a little more. Washington focuses on the run. Spread-wise, I'll touch on the spread. I know you've already pretty much showed your hand there. I do lean Washington on the spread. If I think they're going to score, and I think Michigan is, going to be in a little bit of trouble in this game. Michigan's team total is 30.5. Are they going to be able to get up to, are they going to score 28 points in this game, essentially, if my best bet is the Washington team total? I don't know. So I would lean Washington plus the 4.5, and we'll see how those bet splits even out. Let me get your thoughts, though, on the total. I've shared my thoughts a little bit more here by saying that the Washington team total is my favorite play. I want to hear where you're at in the game total here because it is creeping up. We know the public's going to bet the over in the national title game indoors. It's creeping up. But we got a Big Ten defense here that kind of chops things up. That's something we're not necessarily used to with all these SEC teams playing in the college football final.
So just in terms of what the market's done, it has risen, Julian. That does tell us that some respected money did go over here. Open at as low as 55 for a total. You're up to 56. A couple 56.5s out there, so it's continuing to rise. Currently, you're getting 64% bets, 70% of the money on the over. And I think you can look at it one of two ways. Like, if you look at Michigan, this is a high total for a Michigan game. They're used to a lower total than this, 40s-ish. You look at the other way, Washington, this is a very low total for them. I mean, we're used to Washington totals in the 60s, inching towards 70. Those are the type of games that they love to play. So to me, in a championship game where there's going to be a ton of public money and the public's going to want to get home from work tomorrow, get excited for the game and bet the over. I'm always wary of just taking the over in the Super Bowl, the over in a championship game, because it's such a public move. My angle here would be, Julian, how high does it get? Does it get to 57? Is there a point of resistance where it comes back down and you start to see it fall a little bit? I haven't really made a bet on the total either way, but I just think it's a word of caution that, yes, the market's going up, but I don't like being with the public when you're getting the worst of the number in a really public over championship game.
All right, let's talk player props for a minute here. I already kind of talked about Blake Corum. I was getting ready to bet his rushing over. It came out.
Do you have any time touchdown on Blake Corum?
Oh, it's like -3.
It's got to be a McCaffrey number, right?
He scored every game this year, generally multiple. So I don't know. If you're slapping together like a same game parlay, there's a leg for you. Can't bet that straight. So I already mentioned the under. I would lean to the under on his rushing, but my favorite prop in this game is Rome Odunze receiving over. It opened in the mid-80s. I think it's getting up into the 90s. Fine with that. He's gone over 100 yards in 10 of his 14 games this season. Now he's going up against a good Michigan defense here, but he's still indoors. Last couple of games indoors in those games against Texas and Oregon were 100-yard games for him. And I think that the matchup is just tougher for Michigan than it is vice versa. They have to deal with this passing attack of Penix and these receivers. And I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is the comp here. He's the guy that I want to pull up in these Ohio State-Michigan games. Dicier outdoor games the last 2 years. This year's 5 grabs for $118 for Marvin Harrison Jr. Last year, 7 for 120. Good luck stopping this go-to duo. I like the over there. Anything up to 99.5, we'll call it. He's going for 100.
Yeah, I can't argue with any of these wide receivers. Odunze obviously is the best receiver on the team. Looking toward the over there. I'm with you, Julian. I'm going to go to Jack Westover, a little bit of a lesser-known guy, but he's a tight end for Washington, and he's really picked it up here as of late. He's a senior. He's from Washington. You have kind of that hometown kid angle, but really it's not the sentimentality of this play. It's the data. If you look at his receiving yards, it's 25.5. Over -120. It's the number that I got. It's continuing to get juiced up to the over. He had 6 for 59 yards against Texas, and he's going to get, I think, a lot of good matchups here because with those great the trio of wide receivers for Washington, you got to pay attention to them. Does this leave Westover maybe unheralded or just uncovered? I think he's got a great matchup here. I'm going Westover over 25.5 receiving yards.
All right, we will talk, we won't talk. We will see what happens in the Natty on Monday night, Michigan and Washington. Next, we're going to go back to NFL Week 18 and talk some start-sit.
Welcome back here on The Sweat. Let's take a look at some notable quarterbacks that are going to be sitting today. A lot of them are going to be sitting today here. We got Sam Darnold going today for the 49ers. Carson Wentz, my God, going for the Rams. Jeff Driscoll going for Cleveland. And then Blaine Gabbert going for the Chiefs. So a lot of guys that are going to be sitting here today. A lot of starters that are going to be sitting here today. Let me ask you guys here, how can we take advantage of some of these guys that are coming in here? Like, good example last night, Huntley going under his passing yards. We talked about there on the show. Came actually pretty close. It was at 168.5, but still went under in that. Josh, any thoughts on that there?
Yeah, so I'm looking at a lot of these prop bets to try to take advantage. A lot of them aren't up right now, Steve.
Sure.
So I think the odds makers are just in a tough position like we are as bettors, not knowing whether, Darnold, Wentz, Driscoll, Gabbert, and these guys will have a good game or not. So they're not really hanging these bets right now because, again, they don't want to put out a bad number that's way off and they get hammered by it. So to me, Steve, it's kind of like, do you want to, again, bet against these guys? Because clearly they're a backup, and that kind of sends the message on the team that we're not taking this game too seriously, or we're just going to try to get out of there without getting injured. Or do you look at it as you can buy low on these guys because the public thinks they're terrible, and maybe you're getting a deflated number. So I'll give you one example just in terms of Blaine Gabbert. Does anyone really want to bet the Chargers today? I mean, the Chargers seem like the play. Casey's resting everyone. Gabbert's at quarterback. The Chargers open -1. They're up to -3.5. That seems like an easy play to play the Chargers here. But again, these are things you got to consider when you're playing these backups to whether bet on them or bet against them.
Any thoughts on that, Julian?
These are, specifically to that game, people are betting against the Chiefs is what they're doing, and they're forgetting that they're betting on the Chargers, who also have nothing to play for.
Right.
So, you got to balance that out. I think the Ravens kind of had a little bit more motivation, even with the backups against the Steelers, than the Chargers would have in a game like this. So, sure, betting against the Chiefs without all their guys seems great, but what are you betting on?
Sure.
And now past a key number of 3, absolutely no interest.
We got some other starting offensive players that are going to be sitting here too as well. The Rams are basically sitting their entire offense, feels like. No Williams, Cooper Kupp. I think Puka, I'm not sure if Puka is playing or not. I don't know if we got official word on that.
He's going to try and get that rookie record, right?
That's what, I think that's
and then right to the bench.
And then Devonta Smith looking like he's going to be out. T. Higgins look like he's going to be out. Any thoughts on any of these guys sitting? Like, this could be a good spot for Dallas Goedert. Looking at the Eagles, T. Higgins, obviously, Jamar Chase, and Tyler Boyd could maybe get some extra looks here. Any guys that you're targeting with some of those inactives that are going to be out today?
Those are tougher ones, I think, rather than the incentive ones. I would love to say, hey, Puka's going to play, let's get a prop on him. Well, it would be impossible to set. The over-under would be the amount of yardage he needs for his rookie record, which he's going to get, and then he's going to sit. So if you put a normal number on him, you would pound the under on that because he's not going to stay in the game long enough to get there. So, all of these guys, I think, are interesting conversation-wise and probably all sits in fantasy, and you're not going to pay for them in DFS. But I don't know if there's anything betting angle-wise that we can do with them.
All right, let's talk about some of those incentives that we have on the board here today. Nothing really huge this year. Last year, there was a big year for some of these incentives to hit with some prop bets that we can take. This year, not as much there, but there are still some notable guys that we can target here. Let's start off with DeAndre Hopkins, who is 49 yards away from an extra $1 million on his contract. Prop right now is set at 63.5. In Week 11 against the Jaguars, he had 4 catches, 59 yards, and a touchdown in that game. But what's most notable is that looks like we're have Ryan Tannehill playing in this game. Hopkins with Tannehill averaging over 7 targets a game, over 4 receptions a game, and 58.5 yards. What are your thoughts on this one, Josh?
Yeah, so I would lean toward the over in this one, Steve. I think you mentioned 63.5. I think it's up to 64.5 now.
Okay.
So to me, that's one thing to look out for when you're monitoring these props, how they move throughout the week, but then on game day. Game day movement is so important to me because that's when you have the most information available, the biggest bets come in. So the fact that this one has risen a little bit, definitely something to keep an eye out for. And the connection with Tannehill, being the go-to guy. Hopkins was a guy, if you remember, in our neck of the woods in New England, we were like, why would Hopkins choose the Titans over the Patriots? A lot of Pats fans were mad. Well, obviously, Titans not that much better, but a little bit better. But I think maybe a management play. Obviously, the team doesn't want to pay out more money to these guys, but maybe a sign of goodwill that he came to them when they really needed him. You get him a few yards here, get him his number. I think it could be worth a look there.
I don't care what anybody says. It's because they put pork in his clam chowder. That's why he chose Tennessee over New England. Any thoughts on this one, Julian?
Yeah, huge fumble there by an unnamed restaurant in New England. Sorry, what again is the number he needs to get the $1 million bonus?
He needs 49.
Right? Oh, he needs 49.
Yes.
Okay, so what I don't like here is that the prop is well over what
Right.
he needs.
Yep.
Bet the over. Hopkins needs yards. It's going up from 63.5 to 64.5. Well, guess what? 55 makes him $1 million, and you lose your bet. It's a pass for me on Hopkins. Jacksonville, it's a decent matchup. Jacksonville 27th in terms of passing yards allowed per game. But again, Tennessee's playing for nothing. Jacksonville in an all-out spot. When the prop is higher than what you need, I always suggest to stay away. And another thing I'll say, like, Hopkins is a veteran. Tennessee's trying to get young. They're maybe trying to go in other directions. They could be parting ways with Hopkins after this season. Do they really want to put him in a spot to pay him another $1 million if they already are planning on parting ways? That's the other part to look out for. Yes, the players are going to try and get the incentive, but some organizations will help their players get to it. Others will play it a little bit cheaper and say, we don't want to pay this out, especially to somebody that's maybe not a part of our future.
Yeah, and this is the reason why a lot of these props aren't on the board right now. Like, for example, Travis Kelce needs 16 yards to go over 1,000 receiving yards. I think it's 7 straight years. How do you put a line on that? Because once he gets over the 16, they're probably going to take him out, and that's why a lot of these props are not up here for Week 18.
The Chiefs should not play Kelce to get a stupid another 1,000
Yeah, something that
yard
really
season.
doesn't even mean anything.
Nope.
But Chris Jones is half a sack away from getting an incentive here, $1.25 million going up against the Chargers in a very meaningless game here. Easton Stick has taken 11 sacks in 4 games. He's been under pressure on 29% of his dropbacks. Again, is this one that you're looking to target here? Does Jones get it? He's had a sack in every game but 5 this year. Julian.
I think that there is something to this one. Now, should Chris Jones be playing, in theory, in a game like this? No. But you remember the contract dispute with Jones to begin with.
Right.
This guy wants his money.
He missed the first week, right?
He missed the first week. They lost to the Lions. They paid him. What better way to show good faith in a guy that you want a part of your defense, your championship caliber defense moving forward around your quarterback of Patrick Mahomes? What better way to show him, hey, we messed up preseason, we care, than to get him this million and whatever bucks? We saw last night how excited Jadeveon Clowney was for his $750K.
You would have thought it was like $5 million.
750,000 is pretty good.
Yeah.
This is a lot more than that. I do like Chris Jones to find a way to get this sack.
Any thoughts,
I think that could be definitely worth a look. I'll give you one that isn't an incentive, but Bijan Robinson, he's at 948 rushing yards this year. Does he want to get to
Arthur
1,000?
Smith definitely wants to keep him under that.
Falcons hate him. Falcons
What I
don't like
would
him
say,
at all.
over 57.5 is minus 130. He's gone over in 2 straight, and he played New Orleans earlier this year. He had 91 rushing yards. So even though it's not a money-based incentive, it'd be great if you started your career with a 1,000-yard season. I'd go Bijan over 57.5.
One prop that I think has no chance of going over is Austin Eckler needs 110 total yards for 100K here. He's only done this 3 times in the 13 games that he's played. That's for you math whizzes out there. It's 23% of the games that he has on the season here. Last time this happened was Week 10 against the Detroit Lions. What are your thoughts on this one here, Julian? I think this one just has no shot.
I'm a no. It hasn't been his year, and this isn't a great matchup. There's no reason. This is a way that the Chargers can save money, I guess, by shutting him down. He doesn't need to be in this game. So yeah, it's a pass.
Pass for you too, Josh?
I would think pass, but let's think of it the other way. What if the Chiefs sit a lot of their good defensive guys and Eckler goes off? It's a game that the Chiefs don't care about, and obviously the Chargers want to maybe end the season with a high note. Again, I'm probably not going to play it, but I think you got to factor these things in. The matchup may not look good on paper, but it could be a good matchup if a lot of these guys sit for the Chiefs.
Yeah, I mean, the Chargers have been out of it for a while, too. It's not like they really have any incentive to play these guys here at this point, so they're just kind of running this game out here. Another one we have here is Adam Troutman to score a touchdown. Just needs one for 100K here. Obviously, the Broncos have been going through, whatever it is that they're going through at this point here. Do you like him to score a touchdown here today, Josh?
I mean, he is a Sean Payton guy. Wasn't he with him with the Saints? So maybe they want to do right by him. Obviously, that's a lot of money, and you would think they'd want to, get him that cash here. We remember Gronk when he need the one more tutty, or what do you call them, 2 tutties or whatever. He got it in that film that obviously Brady got for him. I'm not going to put a ton of stuff into these incentive guys. I think it's really kind of a story that it generates a lot of clicks. A lot of people are interested in it, and you think of it as just a regular, like myself, an average Joe. I could do this and get $700,000, then, I'm going to do everything I can possible to make that happen. But I think it might be a little bit overrated. I would just mention for the game, I like the Raiders in this spot a lot. It's a motivational standpoint. They open like -2, 2.5. They're up to -3, and they're going to play for Pierce. They want Pierce to be their coach. Denver's packing it in here, so I like the Raiders' money line.
Real quick on Troutman, this one's gone from over +400 down to +320. Sean Payton, quote on player incentives, "It's money well spent as opposed to well saved, relative to your team, your locker room, and everything else. We have one specific one. I'm not going to tell you who. There's one going into this game. Adam Troutman, a Sean Payton guy in New Orleans, right after he got the job, he traded for him. It's only $100K, but it's meaningful to him. Now, you got to get a guy into the end zone. That's not the easiest thing in the world, but they are going to try and do this. Troutman, plus 320, still a great price. Bet him to score a touchdown."
We'll keep an eye on Puka Nacua here. He needs 4 receptions to break Jalen Waddle's NFL record of 104 receptions in 2021. Also needs 29 yards to break Bill Gorman's NFL record of 1,473 receiving yards back in 1960. All right, we're going to take a quick break here on the Sweat. So many people with future bets on the line in Week 18. We'll tell you which teams are close to going over their preseason win totals when we come back. back here on the Sweat. A lot of future bets are going to be cashed out here in the next 24 hours or so, including some preseason win totals that we have up here on the board. Here's a look at some of them that we have here from DraftKings Sportsbook. For teams that need just one more to hit the over, 4 of these teams actually have head-to-head matchups today. Raiders and Broncos, as well as Bears and Packers. You see a lot of these teams here with 7.5, Packers at 8.5, Broncos 8.5, which had no shot, it looked like, in the beginning of the season. Seahawks and Bills 8.5 and 10.5 here respectively. So guys, we're going to go through some of these games. We're going to basically go through if we want to hold on to these tickets or maybe cash them out here before that game starts.
We showed the win totals there. Are we cashing or we're keeping or cashing the over or the under?
Well, that's for you to decide.
Okay.
You tell me what you're going to do here.
All right.
Let's start off here with the Seahawks at Cardinals. A week ago, the Cardinals probably weren't even really in this conversation, and that win total was in flux really all throughout the season. It was at one point, it was at 5.5, I think you told me earlier this morning.
Opened 5.5, closed, I thought, 3.5.
I think that was too, but mostly it was 4.5.
The majority, it was 4.5. If you bet the Cardinals win total, there's a good chance you have 4.5. And because of that Eagles win, here we are up against it,
right,
against a Seattle team that is trying to play for the playoffs,
right,
and up against their win total.
So how do you kind of figure this one out here?
I don't know. I need to ask somebody smarter than me because I have a big Arizona under 4.5.
Well, put it this way: you're a Seahawks backer.
Okay.
What's the move here?
If you're a Seahawks backer, I'm on the over. I'm holding my ticket because you have a better price. They're now a longer favorite on the money line than the price that you paid on your win total ticket. So I'm hanging on to that and letting the over ride and hoping that they win and take your good price on Seattle money line.
Yeah, so I'll look at it from the perspective of, like Julian, I'm holding an under 4.5 with Arizona. So this looks like a great bet much of the year. Kyler Murray comes back. They play a lot better. You heard the coach tell everyone that they really love Kyler Murray. He's expected to be their number one. Does that take them out of the tankathon for a quarterback? I think Marvin Harrison Jr. would be a great addition for that team. But from my perspective, I'm holding the Arizona under 4.5. But I'm also looking at the betting market and saying Arizona looks pretty sharp today. So I'm taking the points with Arizona. Maybe I'll get lucky and they lose, but they lose by 1 or 2, and we can get both of them. But I got to stay true to root for my initial futures ticket, but also look at the market. Again, Arizona open getting 3.5 or 3. This line's coming down to 2.5 at a lot of shops. Everyone is riding Seattle, yet it keeps falling to Arizona. And if you look at Kyler Murray as a dog, 24-14 against the spread, 63%. They're still playing hard for Gannon. Again, I don't know if it speaks more to Philly or to Arizona last week, but we saw what Arizona did going to Philly and winning that game. To me, Seattle, again, they looked pretty good for the playoffs at one point, tailing off here as of late. I'll take the +3 with Arizona and maybe hope that I can still get the under 4.5.
So real quick, that is likely what I'm going to do with my Arizona under. I'm not going to play any Arizona money line. It was one of my bigger futures, so I am probably going to have to hedge here the way that they're playing. Why did they have to beat the Eagles? But here, we are where we are. It's taking points with Arizona, and you mentioned maybe we get lucky and middle win on 1 or 2. I'll pray for a push. Push is fine by me. Push that spread, cash the under on Arizona, and let's get out of here.
This is a tough one here because these were two pretty popular teams that people were playing over-unders on their win total before the season began. In the same division there, Broncos and Raiders. Both of these teams with a win will cash the over on their win total. The Raiders are pretty sizable favorites in this one, -162 on the money line. Of course, the Broncos have gone away from Russell Wilson. They're using Jarrett Stidham now. The Raiders are using Aiden O'Connell at this point. What are your thoughts on this one here, Julian?
So Josh said that he likes Vegas earlier, which I like the narrative there that they're playing for Antonio Pierce. The players want Pierce to get that head coaching job. They have some motivation. The betting splits say the opposite. They were kind of sharper. They were sharper on Vegas. Now you're seeing 26% of the bets for 62% of the handle on Denver getting the points. I bet Denver preseason over 8.5, and as you see, you can toggle on DraftKings Sportsbook. You can play whatever number you want. I had some Denver over 7.5, which cashed. So since I have that cashed, I can potentially let this 8.5 ride. Now the thing is here, do I want to? If I want the Raiders, I can't mess with points. I got to lay 160 money line. Do I want to do that and risk getting middled myself and paying some juice? Probably not. Given the sharp bet split on Denver, I'm probably gonna keep my over 8.5 ticket.
What do you think, Josh?
Yeah, I think if you're Denver, you're cashing this one out. I think if you're Vegas, you're rooting this one to get a win here for Vegas and go over that 7.5. They're sitting with 7 wins right now. Julian made a good point. The data does tend you to believe that Denver's pretty sharp. 26% bets, 62% of the money. I do like that. We're sitting at 3 right now with Vegas. A lot of these threes are minus 110 both sides. A couple are juiced back toward Denver, though, plus 3 at minus 115. I will put a lot of stock into that narrative, though. I think this is a locker room. When Josh McDaniels got fired, they were so happy. They won that game. They were smoking cigars. I mean, it was like they won the lottery there. They really like Antonio Pierce. And remember, if you go back, what was it, last year with Bisaccia or the year before, I forget what it was, he came in, they made the playoffs, they did very well, and I think they were upset that he wasn't named the coach the following year. So it's kind of history repeating itself at this point. Pierce is a guy who is very fiery, who's a leader, who they really like to play for. I think that is the motivating edge here for Vegas. So I am on Vegas money line, but again, I got to admit, this bet splits do look pretty good toward Denver.
Another interesting one here. We have the Bears and Packers. Packers need a win here to make the playoffs. Line has been continuously moving towards the Packers here. I know you brought that up earlier in the show, Josh. Again, both teams, whoever wins here is going over their win total. Bears at 7.5, Packers at 8.5. I feel like you're going to go with the Packers here.
So I like the Packers on the money line if you're going to play them. They opened as low as minus 1.5. They got up to 3, but they are coming back down in a lot of shops. A lot of these threes are coming back down to 2.5. So it does tell me there's some respect for Justin Fields and the Bears, plus 3 with the key number there. If you look at the percentages, they do look pretty good for the Bears. 51% bets, 66% money. I think if you miss the 3 on the Bears, that key number, maybe you tease up the Bears, 2.5 to plus 8.5. That could be worth a look. I am rooting for Green Bay to win this game in terms of a win total bet. And I'll throw this to you guys what you think about this one. But Schefter tweeted something out about Jordan Love. He's got a lot of money on the line, the conversation about incentives with touchdowns and yardage, something like that. But over 250.5 passing yards. Can he throw for 251 today? Weather's not bad at Lambeau. He's 6-2 over his last 8. Also, over 1.5 touchdowns is minus 166. He's gone over that number in 7 of his last 8. So it could be a big game for Jordan Love, which would bode well for a money line play here on the Packers.
Tough defense, though, going up against the Bears. Definitely not something to mitigate. What do you think about this one, Packers and Bears?
Yeah, if I'm the Packers, or if I'm a Packers overbacker, I'm probably letting it ride because you have a good number on the money line, essentially. You want to win these before Week 18. But if you don't, at least you got yourself a good number on the last game of the season. I happen to be a Bears. I did what I did with on the Bears. Same thing with the Broncos, except opposite. I have them under 7.5. I also toggled it and bought them to under 8.5. So I've cashed one, and I have a little bit of house money to play with and see if I can get better than the split. This is what I'm thinking I might handle more like Arizona. I might play a little bit, since it's the underdog, I might play a little bit of Chicago plus 3 and hope that works out for me. But I think that this one is a little bit easier to handle than the previous ones that we've talked about.
Interesting hedge opportunity, I think, here with Jaguars at Titans. There's a lot on the line for the Jaguars here, but there's an interesting thing that you can do here. So the Titans are the underdog in this one here, plus 164. Mm-hmm. If you think that if you're looking to hedge, instead of taking that, you actually should be taking the Jaguars to miss the playoffs because that is at plus 180.
Right, and that, just to clarify, they lose this game, they are out. They
Correct.
Can't lose the game and get in.
They're out, and then they're also under their total, which is at 9.5.
Right, so yeah, you're getting yourself the better number there. And if you have a Jags over ticket, at standard juice, you can put half the amount that you risked on the plus 180 and make a huge chunk of that back. So this really depends what you like. If you want to let your good number ride, I'm not going to argue with you. I have plenty of bets that I just decided not to hedge. I did all this work. I got a good number. Here we are. Let it ride. But if you want to protect your bet, at least you have a good price here to get a good chunk back.
We're still not 100% sure on the status of Trevor Lawrence. He is trending towards he's going to play. If I were to guess, I would guess he would be, and they're in such a pivotal game. They obviously don't want to be using it with C.J. Beathard here. But again, Josh, we still don't know for sure. Christian Kirk was activated, but not sure if he's going to play with that groin injury that he suffered a few weeks ago. Zay Jones looking like he is going to play. What are your thoughts on this one? There's a lot of ways you can go here.
Yeah, I'd be a little bit worried here if you're a Jacksonville Jaguars fan, like our buddy Emerson, so best wishes to Emerson and his family. But I would just say Jaguars are getting more than half the tickets, but a really good bet split to the Titans, like 45% bet, 65% money. And the Jags at one point were pretty much painted -4, even 4.5 for much of the week. Now they're down to 4. Some books are going down to 3.5. this is just a tough one here. What are you going to get out of Trevor Lawrence? I think from a motivational standpoint, let's just go back to yesterday where obviously Baltimore sat there, guys had nothing to play for. Steelers needed to win that game. The motivation was on their side. They get it done. So that would kind of lead you to believe that the Jags are the play here. But it's a division game. Lawrence is banged up. It's coming back to the Titans a little bit here. I really want nothing to do with this game. It's a no play for me.
Hypothetically, Julian, news comes out Lawrence is out. What's the move?
It's a gut call for you. I would probably buy back on some Titans, maybe plus the points.
How quickly, Josh, do you think that would move if we got that Lawrence news?
Right away.
Immediately, yeah. The 4 gets down to what? 2? 1?
Yeah.
Trending toward a pick 'em?
Yeah, 3, 2.5.
Something to watch here in the coming hours before the 1 p.m. kickoff. Up next, we're final block of the show. We're going to give you our no sweat bets for Week 18. Don't want to miss that. We'll be right back.
You're watching DraftKings Network's Sunday pregame power-up.
Final block of the sweat here on DraftKings Network and VSiN. We're going to do a little bit of looking into the future here because this could be some value to be had before these teams kick off here before Week 18. We're going to be looking into our crystal balls, so they say, and give you some playoff futures you may want to consider right now before the NFL bracket is officially set. So, gentlemen, final block here. We're going to give some no-sweat bets. We're going to give some futures bets here. Josh, kick us off here. What future are you looking at here today?
So I'm going to go back to a team that played yesterday. They lost, but I like their kind of outlook here moving forward. It's the Ravens. It's not the Colts. It is the Ravens. Ravens plus 135 to win the AFC. I know it's a chalky bet here, but it looks pretty clear on both sides. Obviously, things happen. Very rarely does the things work out the way you think they will. Niners are a minus 120 favorite to win the NFC. Ravens are plus 135 to win the AFC. I'd rather get some plus money on the Ravens than lay a minus number with the San Francisco 49ers. To me, the Ravens are a team that maybe are just putting it together this year. They've made some great moves, bringing in some guys. They've made some great veteran signings, like a guy like Clowney, Kyle Van Noy. I mean, these guys are playing great. Everything seems to be coming together. They're going to have a first-round bye here. They're going to be home throughout the playoffs. And look at their competitors. The Bills have the second best odds, plus 380. They're playing great right now, but again, you go back a few months ago, we wouldn't expect that. Chiefs have a bunch of issues. Dolphins, I don't believe in. The Browns are a great story, but can they win the AFC? I think it's a good opportunity to get plus money on arguably the best team in football to win their conference. Give me Ravens plus 135 to win the AFC.
Julian, you're going to the only team that is not plus money to win a conference.
Sure, why not? I like Baltimore. I hope Josh is right. I have some 11-1 on Baltimore to win it all. I hope they get there. And when they do get there, we're going to get a rematch of Christmas night, Monday Night Football. The Ravens are definitely the best team in the AFC, and they have to win 2 home games to get there. They should do that. But there are other teams capable. I think that they don't have as easy of a path as the 49ers have. The 49ers have shown weakness at times this season, but generally when they are injured, other than that Ravens game, and that was just kind of equal level competition. So, minus 120 for the Niners to get through. They're going to have 2 home games. They're going to be well rested. They're going to be healthy. Watching these Dallases and Detroits and Phillies play each other, those teams are not going into San Francisco and winning. If somebody does it, I think it's more of a divisional wildcard team. Probably not a Seattle, maybe a Rams. One of those teams would be scarier, I would say, for the Niners. But the Niners are going to be big home favorites in 2 games. I think they're going to get there, and then we can reassess in the Super Bowl. But I'm fine laying juice here. A 2-game money line parlay, essentially, for the Niners at home at minus 120. I'm fine with that.
Going with a long shot Super Bowl winner.
Ooh.
I just
Joe
think,
Flacco? Where are you going?
I don't hate this. I may even go in pocket with this as well, even with my play.
The Rams are 60-1 to win the championship. They're better than a 60-1 team at this point. I remember, Julian, when we were doing, and Josh, when we were doing the preseason look-aheads, and the Rams were being tabbed as having one of the worst defenses in the entire league. Teams were going to run all over this team. They ended up allowing an average of 22 points per game. That was about league average. That's not where anybody pinned this team to be. And then scoring offense, they've been a top 10 scoring offense all throughout the season. They're averaging 24 points per game. That puts them right behind the Eagles and Bills. They're right there. It doesn't feel like it though, right? It doesn't feel like this was a dominant team. But they punched their ticket into the playoffs. They're resting all their guys here, so they have an extra week or week and a half so of rest coming into the wild card weekend. I think this team is a lot better than A, we all expected, first and foremost, but B, nobody's given them a shot. Now, obviously, at 60-1 odds, they're very, very long, and there's a lot of good teams in the playoffs right now. But how many teams can you really honestly say, aside from the 49ers, this is a bona fide winner? Really, it's 49ers, Ravens, and then I think it's a total crapshoot after that. So if you're going to give me a team that has played well beyond expectations, the offense that they have with Kyron Williams, Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, 60-1, that's crazy to me. So am I expecting to cash this? No. But I feel like if they come out of...
If they win a couple games,
you're in a good spot already. So I'm taking the Rams here as a long shot Super Bowl winner. I just think they're just not getting enough at this point. All right, let's get into some bets that we are going to cash today, hopefully. No sweat bets. Josh, I got to start with you because I feel like you've been, well, both of you have been chomping at the bit to talk about this game so you guys can get into your Patriots-Jets love fest. We'll start with you, Josh.
So this is a very tough day for me as a Patriots fan.
Oh,
Born and
I feel so
raised
bad
in New
for you.
England, it feels like it's coming to an end. Rumors are swirling
It is coming to an
that
end.
Belichick will get let go tomorrow. He's going to have this big meeting with Robert Kraft. Now, on the one hand, I think Belichick should be let go. He's made terrible decisions in the draft, made awful decisions on his coaching staff, never got a quarterback since Tom Brady left. So I think there's a reason to let him go, but I also think there's a great reason to bet on the Patriots today. From a data angle, the Patriots are pretty sharp. They open as low as -1.5.
How many times have you said that on this show?
But as a dog, usually, they're a dog getting, but now they're a favorite against the Jets,
All right,
Steve.
all right.
That's the key. They're playing the Jets. They're 15-0 against the Jets. Bill Belichick absolutely hates the Jets. He would love nothing more than in a year where everyone in the stands are hoping that they lose this game to get a better draft pick, that he wins this game, gets carried off on the shoulders of his kids and all of his cronies, and gets to say to Bob Kraft, hey, I'll see you tomorrow for that conversation we're going to have. To his credit, the Patriots have been out of it for a while. They've had a terrible year, but the one thing you have noticed if you watch these games and you're a fan, they still play pretty hard. I think that's a rallying cry in the locker room where all these players are saying, hey, Belichick might be grumpy, he might be on his way out, but let's win one for Belichick here. There's a bowl game, Wyoming, where the same thing happened. Their coach was retiring after the game, came back and won that game. So it's against the Jets. It's a blizzard today. I barely got into the office this morning because of all the snow. This would be a picture-perfect ending. This is going to be a great angle here if there's going to be like a painting of Belichick. His final game, the snow's falling down. They beat the Jets 9-3. That's the sort of thing I'm looking for, Steve. Give me a Patriots money line all day. Can't wait to watch this game. Thank you for all the great memories, Belichick.
That was probably the most poetic no-sweat bet that we have had the entire offseason. By the way, if the rumors are true that Belichick would potentially be going to the Chargers play at Foxborough next year.
Perfect, just like when Brady came back. I do agree with Josh. I did bet Patriots money line. I don't know how poetic it's going to be. It's going to be, I don't know about this carrying off in the snow. It's just going to be the normal Belichick, gaze into
He's
nowhere.
got to do something, right? If this is it?
No, he's not going to do
Same
anything.
Belichick?
Same thing. I can't believe this is down to 13.5 now, but I'm still going to take it. I played it at 16.5. The full game's 28.5. But I'm sticking with it here because I think it's going to be like 3-0 at halftime. First half under Patriots Jets. Hopefully you read the article on DraftKings Network and got this 3 points better. Not even that long ago, earlier in the week. Game's at 28.5. It's crazy how much this is dropping, but the weather is going to be a real concern during this game. It's going to be snowing. It's going to be slushy. Wind is going to be in the mix as well. And oh yeah, the Patriots are the worst scoring offense in the NFL, and the Jets are not quite far behind. And the Patriots are playing well on defense right now. This is going to be, I'm going to watch this game because it's going to be that gross.
Yeah.
And I just want to see what it looks like. I will be stunned if these teams put up a couple of touchdowns in the first half, and we're sweating this under.
This, without a doubt, has to be in the running for the lowest first half.
This is the lowest game total now that we're down to 28.5, I think, since 1993, right?
It's Army-Navy total right here.
This is exactly an Army-Navy total.
Oh, it truly is. But I was like going through my mind and trying to think of other games that have had extremely low totals, and then thinking about the first half total. That I feel like that 13.5 has to be the one. I remember we had a couple 14.5s, but not 13.5.
It was that when I
Yeah.
decided I wanted to make it my best bet, and then it dropped. But yeah, this is going to be maybe Belichick last game narrative. Maybe he runs a Navy tribute, a little bit of wishbone offense, get the fullback
Matthew
involved.
Slater's last game,
Yeah.
too. Maybe he gets a crack.
Wow,
Some
talk
kind of
about a
special
narrative.
thing.
Belichick's big Navy guy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, a big Navy guy is going to get the fullback involved,
Yeah.
maybe 8-12 touches.
Maybe we'll see a drop kick or something in that game. Okay, so
That would just stay put in the slush.
yeah, that's very true. So I'm going with the Dolphins. I'm going for the Dolphins cover here. It's back up to 3.
Silly Steve.
It was at 2.5 during the show. It's back up to 3. Buffalo 1-3 ATS as a road favorite so far this season. This is also the first time the Dolphins are a home underdog this year. They have that Cowboys mentality. The offense starts to click when they're at home, and that's exactly where they're going to be in this game here, averaging 34 points per game at home. I was sitting here on this show last week saying the Bills, I'm sorry everybody, that Bills to miss the playoffs is going to lose. We actually still have a chance to catch that in Miami today. I want to go for the double doink here and make that 2 cashes in a row for something I thought was,
that means you're going to lose them.
No, a double win, a cross, I don't know, something. 2 wins, that's all I care. Whatever the acronym is, whatever for 2 wins. That's what we want to have here. Bills to miss the playoffs, Miami to cover in this game here. That would be so poetic, as you so eloquently said earlier here during your segment. All right, boys,
AFC
that is
East
going to
heavy,
wrap it up.
Best bets there.
Yeah, heavy best bets. Let me wrap up the show. Thank you for watching here on the 2 hours here during the pregame power-up on the Sweat, the Lombardi line. Coming up next, keep your TV locked in here. For Julian, for Josh, I'm Steve. Catch you next week.
Stay tuned for more DraftKings Network Sunday pregame power-up.